Hey Tep, this is Kasnak Keparu for Project Illuminated, and I want to talk to you about the new Ghostbusters film. And I usually don't discuss the politics of film. There's a lot of politics around this film that's brewing. And I don't really go into that, behind the scenes stuff. But on this film, I think it's pertinent and it represents an interesting case study as to how the media manipulates people, creates factions, puts sides against each other, and creates this whole division. And if you want to understand more about how that's done through the left brain and the Hegelian dialectic, you should look that up because you'll see how thinking through the left brain, which does things like separate, label, define, create these erroneous definitions, and it has no way of basically linking things together. It doesn't do congregative thinking. You'll get to understand how our society is fractured and what's going on in terms of how we're almost at a point now where it could possibly be in the future civil war, because we're constantly engaging in the Hegelian dialectic where we are forever splitting hairs, talking about my side is better than your side, or I'm vying for more privilege than you. But anyway, don't want to go off into a tangent, but let's talk about this new Ghostbusters film, which again has a lot of politics around it, being that it's all-female cast, and also that the trailers that were recently released don't look all that great. This is being released by Sony Pictures. The film was greenlit by Amy Pascal, who has, from reports, it says some, things about how she wanted to create an all-female centered film, strong, empowered women, which is, hey, I agree with that. I like that idea. So basically what she did was she hired Paul Feig, a director, to spearhead this project and gave him a lot of creative control too. And the film is budgeted at approximately, I believe it's like $150 million, which is a lot. And I think Paul got paid around $10 million of that, which is great. And interesting too, Melissa McCarthy, who's starring in the film, she, from what I heard as well, she got $14 million for this film, which is, wow, pretty awesome. But again, the trailers were released, trailer 1 and trailer 2 didn't do well. In fact, I think it was the most hated trailer on YouTube. It got so many thumbs down, and which started this whole controversy. But I wanted to just go back a bit and talk about the original Ghostbusters, which I love. I believe it was released in 1984. And, when I saw this film, I remember leaving the theater just elated. I was like ecstatic, and I loved the film. I remember calling my mom on a payphone. Back then, they didn't have cell phones. So I called on a payphone. I just couldn't stop talking about the film. It really inspired me to be a filmmaker. The work that Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray did in this film was just so awesome. The characters, the camaraderie. And interesting about this image here, what you'll notice that's missing is Ernie Hudson, and he's playing Winston. Ernie's a great guy, and I would love to have seen them develop his character more. And interesting enough, in the original script, if you read the backstory about this, his character had more depth and breadth to it, and they really focused on his character. But that was trimmed down, and some of the cast, from what I understand, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, some of those casts, they fought for him, and went to the studio to say, don't cut his scenes out. But what inevitably happened is the studio did, and it became more a vehicle for Bill Murray and more focused on his character in relationship to, I think, Dana Sigourney Weaver. But in the original screenplay, Ernie Hudson's character, Winston, had a real chunk of scenes devoted to him. But this brings me to my point with the current Ghostbusters film that's being released now. People all over the internet are talking about how bad this film is, based on the trailers that have been released. And if you watch the trailers, you can go see it on YouTube. It doesn't look very good at all. I mean, I've seen them. I'm not inspired in any way, shape, or form to go see this movie. But I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. But the unfortunate fact about it is, as I said before, how the media manipulates people and creates these divisions, is that what they're doing is they're trying to create this frame or this narrative that if you don't like the trailer, which is the trailer is just very poor, then you are misogynist. You don't like women. You hate women. You're a nerd. And this narrative they keep pushing, and director Paul Feig, from statements released, is insulting the fans of Ghostbusters by calling them nerds and living with their parents in their basement and stuff, which is just a bad idea because you know what? I think Ghostbusters fans like myself, even though we may not like the trailer, we still want to see the film because we just love this Ghostbusters genre, and they're trying to, and I think Paul Feig was trying to make this into like basically a franchise. And I was reading about the plans he had for sequels, and they kind of seem awesome. I kind of like the idea. I think it went a little far because he's talking about in future movies, if this one is successful, they'd be fighting ghost aliens and stuff like that, which it's interesting. It could go either way, good or very bad. So the whole narrative that they're pushing now is like, you can't say anything negative about the film because if you do, then feminists will attack you. They'll say that you hate women, and that's not really the problem with this film. The problem is that they've just released a bad trailer. They have a bad marketing campaign behind them, and I think even down to the cast, I think the cast is just all wrong. And hey, I'm a big fan of having all women. I don't think that's appropriate for Ghostbusters. I think if you had a couple of female characters mixed in with male Ghostbusters, I think that would have been a really good dynamic. You could put a love story in there. I think that would have been interesting. But, I made a film a couple of years ago called War is a Bitch, and it was a military film, took place in the future. It had all female characters, all female soldiers, as you can see here. So hey, I love the fact that you have a film that's all women, but it doesn't take away that you still have to have a great story. You still have to create interesting characters. So you'll see here some of my characters from my my Facebook fan page for War is a Bitch. So, this film was all about female empowerment, and it was a film about clones and a civil war in America, and which is interesting is the way I see things going because, the more of these factions and definitions, erroneous definitions and allegiances that we create with different sides, and again, engaging in this whole Hegelian dialectic where you have, one side against the other, and that's the only two things you can see. There's no middle ground, no shades of gray. You really just create further division. I think that they could have been successful in their trailer and the idea of creating all-female Ghostbusters. But you also have to take into account of how other films historically have done. And there's a film came out a while ago, actually, close to when War is a Bitch was released, is called Sucker Punch. And I don't know if many of you remember this film. I kind of thought it was interesting. I liked it. It wasn't the greatest film, it had some issues, but it was all women, so I thought that was interesting as well. And it had some really, awesome effects in it too, but the story was really, it was convoluted, it was disjointed, so I don't think it did too well at the box office, and here you can see some of the images here from Sucker Punch. And again, it was about female soldiers, and it was almost like a video game in a way. It was cool. I liked that. I had a lot of fun watching the film, and everyone had, all the girls had different characters and specialties in terms of their weapons and all that. And and the point about this film that we have to keep in mind is that the girls look great. I mean, if you see them, they're sexy but strong, things of that nature. And when I'm looking at the Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters, I see these women, and they're not super sexy. It's okay, but I just don't find them interesting in any way, shape, or form. So, but in commenting on that and saying that, they immediately want to label you as a misogynist or you hate women. And in fact, from what I understand is that many people who have been commenting on the trailer on YouTube, Sony is deleting, this is just what I've heard, deleting the comments by women who say they don't like the film and leaving the comments by men who talk about the all-female cast. So they're again trying to frame it and censor the argument to point it in the direction of being anti-female, by deleting those legitimate comments by women who themselves say the trailer doesn't look good, or the film doesn't look good. But what I want to now point to is one of the bigger issues of this film, and why I feel that there is just this just undeniable, overt racism in this film. The original film with, again, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson had Ernie Hudson as the everyday Joe, And this was, again, back in the 80s when you didn't have a lot of black actors working, and especially in science fiction films. But this new Ghostbusters film has an opportunity to update that. So what do? They get this actress or comedian, Leslie Jones, who I believe is known for Saturday Night Live, and here you see her on the left. And right away, I'm looking at her, and I cannot help but think this woman is just not the most attractive woman. And that's, hey, understand, I'm not saying that to be superficial or, again, to be, misogynist. But what I'm trying to say is that films historically have basically downplayed African American women, and what they have done is they don't like to have African American women's beauty compete against white women's beauty. So they tend to have in these ensemble casts where you'll have these white women and you have the one African American woman. They tend to either make her not like dumb her down, and make her look not as attractive as the other white women, because they're afraid of that threat, because of course the white woman has to be on the pedestal and she has to be the symbol of beauty on a global level, and they perpetuate that continually, and that's a fact. So they're not going to promote African American beauty over a white woman's beauty. So when they have these ensemble casts, they are going to have an African American woman, Leslie Jones, who is not, I wouldn't even say, let's throw out the attractiveness. If you look at the trailer and you're look at the way that Leslie Jones acts, it's very buffoonish and coonish. And I'm sorry to say that, I don't like calling other African Americans coons and things of that nature, but there's just no way of getting around it. She just looks horrible, overacting her mannerisms, and she looks very big and burly, masculine, and it just doesn't work. You know what I mean? And let's get to the real fact of the matter is that they had an opportunity to update her character, because she's kind of like the Ernie Hudson Winston character. They had an opportunity to update her character, to make her intelligent, to make her a scientist like the other girls are. But what did they make her? Into a subway token booth person, which is a total insult and is so racist. And she even says this in the trailer: you guys are good with the science stuff, but I'm good on the, whatever, streets or whatever. And I believe she gets the Ghostbusters car, she gets a Cadillac, and it's just so stereotypical, it's so bad. And, and they were called out for this. And I just can't believe that here we are in 2016 and they're pulling this racist thing. But I have an issue with Leslie Jones herself, because she is willingly participating in this. She knows exactly, she read the script, she knew exactly what they were doing in terms of creating this racial rift and the politics around the gender, and she just went along with it for the paycheck, And I want to show you something more on a much deeper level that's problematic. If you look at the types of work that she's getting and the way that they're using her, they are basically pimping her out and making a joke of her. In fact, there was an internet commentary. Her name was Francesca Ramsey, who was talking about, if you don't like Ghostbusters, you hate the idea of all women in the film, which is a total lie. But Francesca did a commentary on this, and I want to show you what this commentary is. You see, here she is, and in the back, Leslie Jones, and just look at the way Leslie Jones looks. it's cross-eyed, buffoonish, making her look stupid. You see that they don't want to create any level of sexual attraction to her, or any like idea of class and pose. They don't want to. They don't want to position her in that way, and which to me, I think she suffers from low self-esteem. She goes along with this. She plays along with this. She does this outrageously coonish stuff that embarrasses all African American women, And I want to show you something else that further illustrates this point. She recently did an Allstate commercial, which is horrible. And the media knows exactly what they're doing. And just take a look at this commercial, and you'll right away you can see how her look at her gestures and her eyes and the way she's tilting her hair. Now, usually when you have a car like this, you have a very attractive woman standing there next to the car modeling. But why did they pick her? Look at this.
What's it like to be in good hands? Man, it's like pure power at your fingertips. Like the power to earn Allstate reward points every time I drive. For my number. And cash back.
Now look at what she did there. She looked at this white guy and wanted my number, and he kind of just like almost to the point of rolling his eyes, and look at her hair, and look at everything about this woman that they are purposely trying to make unattractive, to make manly, and it's just ridiculous. And I'll keep going.
For driving safe and the power to automatically find your car. See you, car, and I got the power to know who's coming and when if I break down. You must be Jerry. Hey.
And she has the black woman's sassy attitude. I see you, car, and you must be Jerry. Hey, and none of the guys are looking at her in like in a sexual way, or they're looking at her think she's pretty. They're not doing that. And typically when they have these type of commercials with white women, she's always beautiful, she's always thin, she's always attractive, and every guy is like falling for her. But in this commercial is the exact opposite.
It means getting more from your car insurance with the all-powerful Drivewise app.
It's good to be here.
Okay, so that's that. And if you think I'm really kind of like reaching here, I'm going to show you another program that she did, which is a parody of a show called Naked and Afraid. And Naked and Afraid is where you actually go into the woods with a partner. You're stripped of your clothing, you're naked, and you have to survive. So what did they do in this episode? The parody is that they have her with this actor. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's in Game of Thrones. I like his character. And here's Leslie Jones in there, and you're going to see a little bit of what's going on here.
Nervous. When are we supposed to get naked? Oh, there's a car. Must be my partner.
Wow! The cool breeze feel good on my ass.
Now look at the way she's acting. She comes out the car naked, hair all wild, very loud mouth. I mean, this is just embarrassing. It's but I'll continue with this if I can.
Man, when my agent asked me if I wanted to appear on the show naked, I was like, yeah. But then he was like, hey, the full title is Naked and Afraid. And I was like, what am I afraid of? I'm Leslie Jones. Woo! Peter Dinklage, are you kidding me right now? I am such a big fan, man. Oh, this.
Now, I'm not going to show this whole thing because this is just too embarrassing. And again, Leslie Jones just goes along with this. For her to come out and display herself in such a way is just degrading to all African American women. And the thing is like people are like, white women do too, or I'm like, no, white women have not done something like this at all. The other thing that you want to point out too is there's so few roles available to African American actresses that the few roles that they get become magnified and become representative of black women as a whole. So it's very crucial that we do have positive images that are showcased until we can have a large amount of images that are available that can offset the negative images. But until that can happen, we need to laser focus on these roles that they're getting and making sure that they represent African American women and African community in a proper light. And one of the things that I want to point out again too is that during the Oscars recently, we had the whole thing where no African American actors were nominated for any of the great work that they did. And then there was this call for us to build our own Hollywood by Jada Pinkett. I have some issues with that because the idea of building your own Hollywood, it's easier said than done. Hollywood is just this global entity, gigantic media machine that is pumping out propaganda across the planet. So it's very difficult to compete against that or to build your own Hollywood on par with that. So that's an issue right there. But the thing that I want to point to is that Leslie Jones is a victim of circumstances, meaning that any type of structure that is built has to have a punishment and reward system in place. It also has to be able to support you. So if there is no structure, such as a Black Hollywood or Latino Hollywood or whatever, that will employ African American people consistently and propagate our image across the planet, if there is nothing in place for that, then you're going to get your Leslie Jones who's going to run to the Hollywood system, which is going to use her, abuse her, and throw her away. And also, when they do run to the Hollywood system and they just take any role and it's demeaning and degrading, we don't have the ability to punish her, to say, okay, now that you have done something that has across the board made us look bad, you will not be employed by us. But we don't have a structure of Black Hollywood that can tell her you're not getting any jobs. So for her, there's no reward and punishment from the African American community. She will be used by the white media infrastructure to keep proselytizing these images of African American women. And I want to close this out by letting you take a look at history a bit and show you what Leslie Jones represents here in this little sketch from Naked and Afraid. During slavery and the North Atlantic slave trade, there was a woman called Sarah Bartman, and also known, I believe, as Hottentot. And she, to me, is kind of like similar to Leslie Jones. See, Sarah Bartman was a woman who was very, she was very big. She had a big butt, big breasts. And the white slave owners never saw anything like her. And basically, here she is being examined by the racist colonists at the time as some oddity. And you'll see, I'll just show you more images of like how her body was then, when she died, I believe she died from a venereal disease because she was then paid for sex, and white men loved her butt and her breasts and how big she was. She died from an STD or whatever. And her body was then put on display, and then they had these gathering of scientists and medical experts to examine her and what an oddity she was, and very much objectifying her. And you never heard anything from the feminists who cry, "Oh, this is wrong." Of course, the feminists don't do that unless it concerns white women. So Leslie Jones, to me, echoes Sarah Bartman and how she is, and how Sarah Bartman was put on display and used and abused. And I see exactly that with Leslie Jones and in her role in the new Ghostbusters film. So that's basically my diatribe here about the new Ghostbusters film. Should you see it? Yeah, go ahead and see it. I think you should. If you're a Ghostbusters fan and you really have nothing else to do, go check the film out. I don't want to badmouth the film, but I'm just letting you know what to expect. And I think it's just has a lot of issues, and I think all those people who have created YouTube videos kind of documenting the problems with this film, the film from a story perspective, and also the politics behind the film are probably rightly justified because it's so problematic what they did. It was unnecessary for them to create this whole gender conflict. It was unnecessary for them to use Leslie Jones in the way they did, not making her a scientist, making her this street girl who is not on par with their intellect. They just did so many things wrong with this film, you know. But if you want, check it out. If you don't, that's fine. It is projected, I think, to make in its first opening weekend around 30 to 40 million. I think it will probably drop significantly, probably at least by 40% the second weekend. So, you know, what's the future of this franchise? Who knows, you know? Hollywood's now into this reboot thing, so maybe they'll reboot it if it doesn't do well, or maybe it will do well. Maybe it will really be successful and surprise us all, which would be nice, you know. But you know, that's all I have to say. This is Ghostbusters, Kepa River Project Illuminated, and that's all for now.